good morning. On a quite beautiful summer's day here in central London, the Palace of Westminster, a picture in the bright morning sunshine. And this is a scene and a view of London normally reserved for the pigeons perched on the grand old Duke of York's shoulders as he sits impassively 324 feet up on his granite Tuscan column, gazing down on Horse Guards Parade. 70 years ago, his ducal successor, who was to become George VI, became the proud father of a bonny princess, the woman who was destined to be queen, and who today reviews the guardsmen and troopers of the Household Division as they celebrate her official birthday, as they have done most years since 1805. It's said the grand old Duke's unwavering eyes stare straight into his old office, once the office of the Commander-in-Chief of the Army, and now that of the Major General commanding the Household Division, from where Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and her guests will, as always, watch the pageant unfold. As for the last couple of years, there are 6 guards on parade today. A guard in this instance meaning a formation of men consisting of 3 officers and 70 men. Ideally, they'd like 8 guards, but as well as being outstanding ceremonial soldiers, these men are also highly trained fighting troops. And operational demands mean there are no more guardsmen available in London. Indeed, the Irish Guards, whose colour is being trooped today, have only fairly recently returned from Oman, where the Jebel provides an excellent training ground. Lieutenant Carl O'Reilly briefs his men.
5 Platoon's mission is to destroy the enemy position at grid 515013.
With support from light anti-tank weapons, the attack is launched. There's little shelter from the searing sun as the Irish Guards spiral and manoeuvre in the wilderness of barren rock and scrubby thorn bushes. In this clear air, with the temperature never below 40 degrees, communication is by radio or hand signals. With the enemy overrun, the dead, who include a platoon commander, are searched before miraculously recovering their composure. At dusk, an unexpected wind picks up. They say an army marches on its stomach, thanks to the catering corps and the pioneers' water purifiers. But hungry men go on eating, even if their tent has gone AWOL. And after all the hard work, it's playtime. And back in the port of Sur, the Irish Guards took the chance of a cooling dip in the lovely clear waters. They tried a bit of fishing and an underwater survey. Between them, though, they managed just 1 fish. Well, from the desert sands of Oman to the searing gravel of Horse Guards Parade, it's almost as hot here. The Queen's colour of the 1st Battalion Irish Guards was last trooped in 1988, so it's overdue another appearance. There's an all-Liverpudlian colour party. Sergeant Bennett, with the colour, is flanked by the 6'4" brothers Ryan, Michael and Simon, who are typical in a very family regiment. The colour will eventually be collected by the escort for the colour, who are number 1 guard over on the left. These are the tallest and mainly the smartest men in the Irish Guards, a regiment that was formed on the 1st of April 1900 on the orders of Queen Victoria in recognition of the bravery of Irish troops fighting in the South African Wars. In fact, a mounted infantry section of the newly formed regiment did see action there with the Guards Mounted Infantry Company before returning to England in 1902, when King Edward VII presented the regiment with its first colours during the King's birthday parade here on Horse Guards. Number 2 Guard is also found by the Irish Guards. And then number 3 Guard represents the senior regiment of Foot Guards, the Grenadiers. These are men of Nijmegen Company, the company that was formed specifically for ceremonial and public duties, and to continue the traditions of the 2nd Battalion Grenadier Guards, when they was disbanded in 1994. Numbers 4 and 5 Guards, found by the 1st Battalion of the Welsh Guards, are the babies of the Household Division, having only been formed in February 1915. Their tunic buttons, in groups of 5, exemplifies their junior status behind the Grenadiers, Coldstream, Scots and Irish Guards. Finally, forming the bottom of the L shape, number 6 Guard, found by F Company of the Scots Guards. And they're another public duties company to maintain the history and traditions of the 2nd Battalion of the Scots Guards. And marching across the centre of Horse Guards Parade, the officers, 18 of them, taking post, 3 to each guard. While final preparations are made on Horse Guards Parade, there's activity at the other end of the Mall. In between, the crowds are gathered in their thousands below the avenues of plane trees that line St James's Park, a green treasure in the heart of this great city, for which we should thank Henry VIII and his love of hunting. As well as plane trees, another 231 officers and guardsmen line the ceremonial route of the Mall, at the end of which stands the Victoria Memorial, the view that the royal family will have from the balcony a little bit later on. And from down below there, the royal salutes for the Queen Mother. One of 2 barouches in the Royal Mews carries Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, accompanied by Her Royal Highness the Princess Margaret, playing the national anthem, the massed mounted bands of the Household Cavalry. Very summery primrose yellow for Queen Elizabeth. Being driven by the Queen's deputy head coachman, John Nelson, who's been in the Royal Mews for 30 years. The barouche driven or drawn by 2 15-year-old greys, St Patrick and King Street. They will make their way up the Mall to Horse Guards Parade, where the field officer in brigade waiting is just giving orders for number 3 guard to split to allow the carriage to come through. This is the man in charge of all that happens on parade today, the commanding officer of the 1st Battalion Irish Guards, Lieutenant Colonel James Pollock, who follows in his father's and stepfather's footsteps, his father having been wounded while serving with the Irish Guards in the Battle of Normandy, and he retired in 1973 as a brigadier. His principal officers of the escort, furthest away from us, the subaltern, is Captain Christopher Geeker, known as the Black Prince in the battalion. His father was a prince in the Romanian royal family who came to prep school here in 1939, stayed because of the war and eventually joined the Irish Guards, became the Chief of Staff, and Christopher watched this parade as an 8-year-old from the Chief of Staff's office in the Horse Guards building. Then in the middle is the ensign, Second Lieutenant Fabian Roberts, one of 10 children. His father, now sadly dead, was in the Welsh Guards. His oldest brother, Sebastian, was the commanding officer of the battalion until February this year, and his brother Cassian is captain of number 2 guard. And then nearest the camera is the captain, Major James Stopford, actually son of a naval captain, but I'm told there are many military Stopfords, although the admirals outnumber the generals by about 11 to 7. But his great-uncle was the first second-in-command of the Irish Guards when they were formed in 1900. In front of the garden wall of number 10 Downing Street, the massed bands of the Foot Guards, 220 musicians from the 5 Foot Guards regiments. Only 2 ranks of corps of drums this year, from just the Irish and Welsh. And they will just relax for a moment, but not so the Household Cavalry, who prepare to greet the Queen at Buckingham Palace. Her Majesty the Queen in the ivory-mounted phaeton, her conveyance since she gave up riding in 1987, only used for this parade, and the Crown Equerry and Equerry in waiting move forward to guard her as they progress up the Mall. Drawn by Iceland and Auckland, and proceeded down the Mall, firstly by the massed mounted bands of the Household Cavalry, and then the first two divisions of the Sovereign's escort, the Blues and Royals. The royal procession follows on behind Her Majesty. Winged figure of victory on top of the Victoria Memorial looks down on this scene. It really is a quite wonderful one on a beautiful sunny day like this. Immediately behind the phaeton, the four royal colonels of regiments, then the sovereign standard of the Blues and Royals, and bringing up the rear the last two divisions of the Life Guards. On Horse Guards parade, all is quiet as they await the arrival of the Queen Mother. Number 3 Guard having opened up. So this is the view at the other end of the Mall. The two barouches, the Queen Mother in the first one, her personal staff in the second one. Two outriders from the Royal Mews, Stephen Hughes and Andrew Rudden-Pinner, ahead of the barouche. Stephen Hughes, 15 years with the Household Cavalry Mounted Regiment before he joined the Royal Mews. And Andrew Rudden-Pinner had 8 years with the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery. The orders you heard being given by the field officer as he prepares the foot guards to present arms, which they'll do as Her Majesty turns through the gap created by number 3 Guard, and then the massed bands of the foot guards will play the national anthem. So Her Majesty with the Princess Margaret will go in under the archway and make their way up into the Major General's office up above the archway. And even at the 73rd year of viewing, I'm sure she'll particularly enjoy the music of Ireland, bearing in mind her especially close links with the Irish Guards. The Queen Mother is a favourite and an honoured guest at the Irish Guards' annual St Patrick's Day celebrations. On the 17th of March every year, the Irish Guards always celebrate their country's patron saint with the Regimental Day, a family day here in Chelsea Barracks. From Reveille, when coffee is laced with the first whiskey of the day, everything is set to be one long party. It's a happy reunion with old comrades of all ranks and ages, meeting one another and the present serving guardsmen. And the young generation is here too, with their own front row seats, waiting to watch their father on this special parade, and taking the chance to catch the spirit of the regiment. This is the 30th time that the Queen Mother has personally distributed her gift of shamrock, the national flower of Ireland. After the Queen Mother had presented shamrock to the Colonel of the regiment, the Grand Duke of Luxembourg, and the senior officers, the general distribution began with officers and NCOs receiving and distributing this Irish emblem until every member of the regiment on parade had the adornment for their caps. Even the dog wasn't forgotten. He's an Irish wolfhound called Cuchulainn, after a hero in Irish history who fought to the death against great odds, taking many of his enemies with him. The present-day Cuchulainn is just over 18 months old, and unlike his early namesake, he's a gentle giant. The Irish are the only Guards regiment to have a live mascot, and he and his handler, drummer Marty Flanagan, from the Corps of Drums, are used to parades and crowds. The wolfhound always leads the parade, taking his place at the head of the band. The parade ended with 3 cheers for the Queen Mother. Alongside the Queen Mother, the Grand Duke of Luxembourg joined in, and he'll be riding Noble in today's birthday parade with a new and specially designed harness based on the decoration of the Order of St. Patrick. Tim Mills, the master saddler of the Household Cavalry, helped to design the harness, and he made it himself. Shamrock is everywhere, as a reminder of the Irish, and Noble, a dappled chestnut now 20 years old, rather seems to fancy his new attire as he stands placidly in the sunshine. Corporal Major Tim Mills is a member of the Society of Master Saddlers and also the Loriners Company. He'll be taking the livery of that city company later this year and is working for his master's degree at the City and Guilds College. This enamelled Star of St. Patrick was made in Birmingham and is a replica of the star which belonged to the Duke of Connaught, who commanded the British Army in Ireland from 1900 to 1904. The badge of the order with the motto, "Who can separate us?" The delicate chain of Tudor roses and knots completes the new harness, fit for the Colonel's horse, with the Dublin harp on his brow and the star on his face. And live in the Mall, on the right-hand side of the 4 colonels there, you can see in a row just behind the Queen's carriage, is Noble, bearing the 7th Colonel of the Irish Guards, the Grand Duke of Luxembourg, Prince John. The whole procession is led by the Brigade Major, Lieutenant Colonel Julian Crowe, whose job it is to get the Queen onto Horse Guards at exactly the right time as the clock strikes 11. Behind him, the first part of the retinue, 4 troopers from the Blues and Royals. These are the best 4 troopers in the Blues and Royals in their Richmond Cup, which is an annual inspection which is actually presented by the Queen to the troopers at the Royal Windsor Horse Show. Number 3 in the retinue is Trooper Martin Ireland, who's only 19 and only passed out last September, which is very young for a member of the retinue. It takes them something like 65 man-hours to prepare their equipment and the horses' equipment for that inspection. The massed mounted bands of the Household Cavalry ride on playing Golden Spurs. Colin Henderson is the Queen's head coachman, riding postilion on the Phaeton that was also designed to be driven. Mr. Henderson used to be in household cavalry himself until 1974, since when he's become an expert coachman, spent 10 years as head coachman and curator at Doddington Carriage Museum, and then for 10 years until 1994 he ran his own coaching business. Queen now, of course, ever since she's been driven onto parade, comes in mufti as opposed to the uniform that she used to wear when she rode on as Colonel-in-Chief of the specific regiment whose colour was being trooped. The Household Cavalry make their way along the approach road in front of the Guards Memorial, where they'll have a long wait while the Foot Guards do their thing for the first part of the parade. The only military thing that Her Majesty is wearing is that brooch presented to her by the officers of the Household Division. They will all acknowledge the Queen's colour as they go past behind it, including the head coachman. And the 4 Royal Colonels all salute. His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales is Colonel of the Welsh Guards nearest to us, and His Royal Highness the Prince Philip Duke of Edinburgh, Colonel of the Grenadier Guards. Field Marshal His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent, Colonel of the Scots Guards. And furthest away, General His Royal Highness the Grand Duke of Luxembourg, Colonel, of course, of the Irish Guards. Prince John is one of the very few foreigners to be colonel of a regiment in the British Army. Queen Mother looking down as her daughter makes her way underneath the window, and she'll pull up behind the dais there, and as she steps onto the dais, the field officer in brigade waiting will give the orders for the royal salute, and the mass bands of the Foot Guards will greet their Colonel-in-Chief with the national anthem.
Guards! Royal salute! Present arms!
The Sovereign's personal standard flutters above Horse Guards. King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery fire a 41-gun salute in Green Park. 6 guns firing at 10-second intervals. It'll take 7 minutes to complete. These are men who have that famous musical drive. I'm sure they love you to go and see them at the Royal Tournament. They're there for 2 weeks in July. Now, though, the Queen inspects her Foot Guards and the Household Cavalry. slow march for the inspection is one of Percy French's most beautiful melodies, Paddy Riley. The words conjure up a picture of an emigrant longing to return to his home village. And tones that are tender and tones that are gruff are whispering over the sea. Come back, Paddy Riley, to Bally James Duff. Come back, Paddy Riley, to me. March, the inspection of the Household Cavalry, is another of Percy French's compositions. Slattery's Mounted Foot is a favourite of the Queen Mother's, who specifically asked for it to be played now. This is the 45th time that Her Majesty the Queen has inspected her household division on this parade, and it's no formality. Invariably she has some comments for the Major General afterwards at the palace, and she always sends him a signal with her thoughts on the parade. So with the inspection over, that's really the end of phase one. There are another 4 phases, if you like, in military terms: the troop, in slow and quick time by the mass bands, then the actual trooping of the colour, then the march past in slow and quick time by the foot guards, and then the rank past at the walk and trot by the household cavalry. Immediately behind Her Majesty, the 4 royal colonels. On the right, as we look at them, is the Grand Duke Prince John, who fought with the 3rd Battalion of the Irish Guards in the Second World War, landing on the Normandy beaches in June 1944, taking part in the Battle of Caen, and being present 3 months later when his native country was liberated. He left the Irish Guards as a captain in 1947 and became the Sovereign Duke of Luxembourg when his mother, the Grand Duchess Charlotte, abdicated in November 1964. He is, in spirit and in fact, a true Irish Guardsman. Behind them in the procession, Major General Ian Mackay-Dick, the Major General commanding the Household Division. And also there, Lieutenant General the Honourable Sir William Rouse, Colonel of the Coldstream Guards, the only serving officer amongst the colonels. He's actually Quartermaster General and retires from the Army next month. So Her Majesty will now watch the rest of the parade from the dais, and she's joined now on the dais by the two colonels of the Household Cavalry Regiments. On the left, General Sir Desmond Fitzpatrick, Colonel of the Blues and Royals, who, as it's their standard that's being trooped this year, is Gold Stick in Waiting. You see the ebony cane in his left hand. That's an appointment that dates back to 1678, when Charles II feared for his life, and he ordered Gold Stick to be in attendance on the King's person from his rising to his going to bed. And it's shared with the Colonel of the Life Guards, who's also on the dais with the Queen. Now the mass bands will troop to the slow march, the Huguenots. Now the quick march Killaloo, when for the first time during the troop and with the Queen's blessing, the pipes will play. Anthony Farrelly, the great nephew of an Irish Guardsman, leaves the mass bands to beat the Drummers' Hall, which will signal the next phase of the parade when the colour is trooped through the ranks of the other guards. In the hue and cry of battle, drum and bugle were the most effective way of transmitting orders, the forerunner of the radio set, if you like. The officers of the escort take post, while Regimental Sergeant Major Martin Brennan, the son of an Irish Guardsman, surrenders his paystick, the tool of his trade, so that he can draw his sword. The protection of the colour and the somewhat vulnerable ensign who carries it will be his primary duty. Meanwhile, Captain Christopher Geeker, the Black Prince, takes over command of the escort. His excellent words of command made even sharper by a glass of port, the customary pre-parade lubrication. As always, the escort will left form and advance in line to collect the colour to the quick march, the British Grenadiers. The escort for the colour is about to become the escort to the colour. As the spotlight falls on the youngest officer in the battalion. Sergeant Major Brennan will take the colour from Sergeant Bennett and hand it to the ensign, Fabian Roberts, who beat off the challenge of 5 other second lieutenants for the honour of carrying the colour today. He fully expects his former Welsh Guards father, who died in 1990, to be sitting on a cloud marking his performance out of 10, as no doubt will his former commanding officer, Colonel Sebastian Roberts, who's in the stands today. If you could see through the veil of black fur that shields the young officer's eyes, you'd see an immensely proud young man granted a rare honour on a day that he'll remember for the rest of his life. The escort will now present arms and the bands play the national anthem. Now it's time for the part of the ceremony from which the parade takes its name. To the slow march escort to the colour, followed by the Grenadiers' slow march, the 2 ranks of the escort will march between the ranks of the other guards, while the ensign alone marches in front with the colour held high for all to see.